TPP SystmOne have loads of tools to help you, but there's one that they've had for quite a while that we've not really covered in great depth in this channel. And to be honest, there's not a lot of information around at all either about it, and that's visualizations. Well, in this episode, I'm joined by one of the EGP learners, Mark, who's going to go through the various visualizations that he's created for his practice over the past few months. Some of them are pretty awesome, and showing us how you can use visualizations to basically make everything easy in general practice with TPP SystmOne. Let's take enhance your primary care and learning. Hello, EGP learners, and welcome to this episode where I'm joined by Mark talking about visualization, something that's been well overdue on the channel. How are we doing there, Mark?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Thanks for having me on, Gandhi. It's great to be here.
Thank you for helping us. So just so that everyone else knows, this is a Saturday morning that we're recording this. I really appreciate Mark taking his time to show us everything that we're going to go through in a second. And we've just had a quick little look at it as well. So there's loads of stuff coming through. What I did want to say is that obviously this is user-generated content, so this is not official TPP SystmOne stuff and all that kind of thing. And Mark's really been generous showing us all this kind of stuff as well. So hopefully we'll give you a flavour of what you can do with visualizations and maybe even how you can get started with this and stuff and things. But just remember that obviously it's your own data, it's your own patient data, etc. and stuff and things. So do make sure you take your own care and attention when starting to do some of this stuff as well. But Mark, yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself first of all.
Yes, I'm a GP partner. I'm based just outside of Norwich at a rapidly growing practice. We're over 3 sites. We've got 22,000 patients. We've grown by about 8,000 patients in the last 10 years or so, and more houses are coming on. So it's a busy practice with lots of the challenges which come with that. But enjoyable, and I think it's these types of things which what's inbuilt into the system, TPP visualizations, that you try and use to kind of improve the patient flow really.
So I know visualizations is one kind of thing it's been around for almost about a year or so, but not many people know about it, and even less people know how to kind of use them and stuff. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I have to say the first time I came across it was thanks to you, Gandhi, because it was one of your videos, which I don't know, it was over a year ago, I think, where it was mentioned, and then you just kind of go, oh, it's worthwhile tinkering with. But at that point, you had to request it from TPP to be turned on. My understanding is that recently that they've turned it on for all practices, so everybody's got access to it. So it was kind of almost in a beta phase before, but now it's on kind of general release. But the question is, and I've kind of seen this mentioned a bit, is like, what can you actually do with them? What is it? What can you actually use it for? I think people have tried, and when I started with it, you're creating I tried creating, I think, like a patient summary where you've got their medication list and then you actually go, well, that's no different to what's on there anyway. So you're almost trying to find a problem for the product to solve, and I think that's kind of slightly organically happened over the last kind of year or so, and I've got a few things to them, and I can kind of talk through the problems which they solve as well.
Definitely. And I guess just to summarize what we're going to cover, so we're going to have a look at how you can do some drug monitoring using visualizations and making that process safer. We're going to cover care navigation through your admin teams in particular, that Mark's been working on and stuff and things. Something that he calls task flow, which is different to the task flow I talk about and stuff and things, but actually I was really impressed with and more than happy for him to call them that. And then we're going to do some complex medication reviews and finish off with MDT meetings and stuff. So if you do want to check out the timestamps down below, I will put them in the kind of show notes and stuff so you can navigate to those particular sections if you want to. But shall we start off with that whole medication, DMARDs, all that kind of stuff and things? We just pop it onto the screen and there we go. Right, so talk us through how you get to it and stuff then, Mark, first of all.
Well, let's again just go back to the problem we had. So within the clinical reporting module, they've got loads of great safety searches within there, and actually we've got the Arden system. But as you can see, there's over 55,000 reports in there, which is a bit of a minefield to navigate. And I've often thought, well, there are some really good reports sitting within there. It would be quite nice to collate those and let's say get our clinical pharmacists to kind of run the reports and look at them. But it's quite difficult, particularly with reports which are within the Ardens module that you can't actually tinker with for good reason, to take them out of the reporting module and give them to your clinical pharmacist. You can run batch reports, which then send a task, but that's not a particularly kind of user-friendly way to do it. So that was one of the first things that I had to look at through the visualization module, to then allow a way to kind of collate reports in the background to make them easy to see. I've got this button on our toolbar. This actually brings up lots of different visualizations, so ignore the fact that there's a big list there. But the one that I'll just demo here is the DMOD searches. So if I click on this, it will actually bring up, there's four listed here. So we've got methotrexate, leflunomide, azathioprine, and sulfasalazine. You've got the actual report that they're working from, which is the details and the names over there. And then in a big bold number, which is difficult to know, you've actually got the number which sit within that report. So it's a really easy way just to kind of look and say, well, actually there is one patient there who hasn't had it. And then if you press on the eye icon, it will actually bring up that report so that you can see that patient. Just to say, these have all been looked at. so I think the reason there's one there is because the patient was on methotrexate. It's now been taken off, but it still picks it up in the report. So, you know, it's all in hand. You can do things like you can actually collapse these as well, which might be useful if you've got a really long list of reports there, to make it a little bit more easy to kind of visualize one element. The way these are run is the reports themselves will run as a batch report every night, or whenever they're run in the background. And that means that every day when you load up the screen, that number will be updated with whatever the batch report is shown. So it's almost giving you a day-by-day kind of breakdown of things, which is quite useful. There's quite a few which we've done. So we've got ACE inhibitors, we've got diabetic searches, lithium, TFTs, teratogenic medications. I suppose just with a recent one which I've put on is there's been the MHRA report about topiramate. So just to give you an example of that one, if I go into the teratogenic medication, what it's got here is our list of patients who, again, in process, who are on topiramate and need to be considered for the pregnancy prevention program. So that's come off a report, and that number will go down every time the appropriate code is put in. And equally, if a new patient joins us which needs it, that number will go up again. So it's just an easy way to keep tabs on those numbers. Yeah, and again, just pressing these icons, haven't quite worked out what those are for, but they're not for this. So I think those are for a different functionality. But if you press on the eye icon, it will bring up the live list of patients there.
Okay. So that's the kind of specific medication reviews. I can really see how bringing that information visually can help you prioritize and focus on what you need to do. And you're right, it's easier to see it that way, I think, for the majority of people than just a list of searches and stuff, which are a little bit more complex and stuff. So I can definitely see how that's helpful. Tell us about the care navigation stuff, because that looked immense, to be honest, but also really useful.
So going back to our practice and the growth that we've had to invest a lot of time in, particularly over the last 18 months or so, in terms of care navigation, because we just got too many patients, really. But I know that's not unique to us. And actually, what you want to make sure is that, it's been said a million times, that the patient gets to the right person at the right time, and the role of what you might have previously called receptionist is so different now to what it was before. It's actually very highly skilled job. So you need to be able to support the team in doing that. So that's where this kind of came from, in terms of trying to collate our internal process for signposting and all the various options which are which are there. Now, one thing to mention with this one is, I'm going to do this from a test patient. So I'll just bring up one here. And again, we've got it here as an icon. So actually, if the patient phones the practice, our care navigators are always all are working off 2 screens so that they can have this on one side and the patient's records open on the other screen. And the interesting thing about this is you can actually interact. So while you've got this, I don't have 2 screens here, but while you've got this on the second screen, you can still fully interact with the notes, which is very different from your traditional TPP templates. So as soon as you open a template of some kind, I don't need to demo it, but it kind of, you can't interact with anything in the background unless you do that slightly faffy thing where you suspend it, I think it is, and have to go back into it. While this actually allows you to fully interact, which is great. And there is a slight trick to doing that, and in terms of, and this is another thing which is not overly intuitive, I don't feel. And I think if TPP could create some good guidance about this, it would be great. Because to actually allow that to happen, when you are setting up, for example, one of these icons, you need to, so I'm just going to amend the button set. You have to say, select a visualization to open in a new window. So if you do it that way, when you press on it, it will put it in a separate window, which will allow you to still interact with with SystmOne itself. But I think without that functionality, this wouldn't work very well. So it's useful to be aware of that. And essentially, what this will do is it will in a step-by-step way take our care navigators through the process. So step 1, establish the reason for the appointment. And from here, you can actually jump off to various templates which we've got. So this is an appointment request, and then the care navigators will fill this out. When this is open, you can't interact anymore. There's not much you can do about that, unfortunately. Or is it a home visit request, which gives us a slightly different template there. Through this, you'll actually also see previous templates which have been filled out. So actually, it gives an easy way to have a quick glance at the previous ones which have been filled in. So if it's a frequent attender, then you can easily see what's been written previously. And that's just a little drop down there. So you can get it out of the way, or you can open it up if needed. Equally, we've got some protocols here for whether it's a same day, something which could wait a few days, or it's a routine appointment. And if you open one of these, it will bring our little protocol in terms of how it needs to be thought about. Are there appointments? If not, do this. If not, do this. So again, it's collapsible. And the next step is considering the appointment options, whether we're looking at an in-house appointment option or an external option. These are just lists which don't do anything, but it's just a prompting list there. If the decision is that that patient does need an in-house appointment, then you can link directly to the free slot search. If actually we want them to go through our online system, there's a signposting option here. I'll demo this in a second with these kind of purple buttons. If, however, it's something which we want to signpost externally because it's more appropriate to be dealt with elsewhere, there's a list of the key signposting options which we've got available locally. And again, the nice thing about that I've had with visualizations compared to your standard template is your ability to display things in much more graphical ways. So you can include pictures, which you can do in traditional templates, but it's just a bit of a nightmare to keep to kind of align everything. So you can add the pictures in. You can, again, just to help the care navigators, it's kind of saying, you know, what the examples of things which might go to these particular services. You can link externally. So, for example, the walk-in centre, if we want to just link directly to their website to see what their average wait time at the moment is, so this is live, then we can do that and we can advise the patient. this links to the communication annex. So if and we've set up some presets within there. So if we click on this button, it will actually bring up a preset which says what the walk-in centre could deal with, where it is, what the website address is, and you just send it and off it goes to the patient. So in a way, rather than explaining things over the phone, you could say, I'll send you all the information if it's appropriate. And then what we try and do is if there is signposting happening, is to make sure that the care navigators code it. So to ask the care navigators to go through the usual coding screen and adding in is just, I think, a step too far. So what this does is it allows them to just click on that, and then all they need to do is press OK, and actually it's coded that a referral has happened to the walk-in centre. The good thing about that is what we can then do is, I'll see if I can find it here, is try and do it every month or so. This loads up, is go to our signposting data. I won't run this all now, but it will then allow us to actually see, well, how many have we signposted to the walk-in centre over the last, I think it's the last 30 days. We look at how many have we sent to pharmacy first, A&E, etc. So it's quite a good way to then measure your, could be to measure your demand, because actually if when your walk-in centre referrals have gone up, that probably means that you're busier in that time of year, or you've got less staff. So it allows you to identify these patterns to look at. You can also break it down. I won't do this, but you can break it down and see actually by which staff members have done the signposting. So you could say, this staff member has done loads, but this staff member hasn't done any. Actually, do we need a bit of targeted training with people? So it allows you to do all those things just through a one click from their point of view.
And I guess if you wanted to as well from that, and I know we're not going to show that now, you could create a visualization that's a dashboard of all that information that you can then review in your practice meetings, or even give a screenshot to your ICB to say this is actually what we're doing in terms of.
Yeah, you could take all those reports and put it into those similar formats to what we showed before. Yeah. This one, I mean, I'm not going to go through everyone, but in terms of, let's say, the community pharmacy scheme, this will actually open up the CPCS templates to do direct referrals from. Again, you can do funky drop downs with what can and can't go through the community pharmacy schemes. I know that's been rebranded recently. iPad, so you got all the usual bits here, which I'm sure everybody's got access to, but it allows it to be in one place, allows it to be very visual, so you can find things nice and easily. For our local wellbeing team, actually, we just send them tasks. That's how we refer. So actually, the reception team can just open up a wellbeing task, type in what's needed, that will go straight through to wellbeing, who will then contact the patient. So it just makes it as frictionless as possible. And that would be really difficult to do through usual templates.
Okay.
So yeah, it does need to be kept up to date. That's one thing which you have to kind of keep in mind with all these things, isn't it? But that's an outline of that one.
As ever, the challenge with a lot of this stuff is not creating it; it's keeping it regular and up to date and stuff, which is actually the bigger challenge over time and stuff and things. So you talked about being able to visualize things more effectively. I know you showed me earlier one thing that you've created called task flow that I thought was really amazing. I really like this. So because it makes something that's normal and routine just a little bit more visual and a little bit easier to use from what I could see. So can you show us the task flow? Because I really want to show that.
Yeah. And I have to say, I can't remember whether I copied your name or not, so apologies for that. I never thought I'd be talking to you live about it.
Don't worry about it.
There we go.
No.
Again, just talking about the problem which we're quite task-heavy practice. We're over 3 sites, so there's a lot of communication that goes on, which needs to go on, which isn't, I'm just going to speak to that person. So we get quite a lot of tasks through the SysmOne, plus a lot of new staff, and it's about how do you train people to use tasks properly. And I have to say, the traditional way, which is just bringing up blank task, is a bit like it's like the Wild West, really. There's no rules. There's no, you can do whatever you want. You can select any task category. write whatever you want and send it off. And so it's a bit lawless. So the first thing I tried to do was obviously something which has been within SystmOne for quite some time, which is task templates. The problem you quickly come up against if you wanted to do quite a lot is, well, I'll bring up the list here. You end up with just a ridiculous amount, which no one's ever going to use because
it's
you
clunky.
just can't get staff.
It is a little clunky,
and it's clunky. Yeah. So this brings up task templates, but through the visualization portal. So the idea, the hope, is that rather than click on that button, the staff member click on this button. Again, this runs fully interacting with the patient notes, so it doesn't freeze it in the background. And what it's asking is, well, who do you want to task? Which department is it? And that's going to be different depending on what member of staff you are. So as a GP, I might speak to a patient and I might say, oh, I'm going to get reception to call you to get you booked in for a blood test or something like that. And so I click on the admin option, and then it brings up various. I've tried to think of, without cluttering it too much, all the main types of tasks which are sent. So for example, blood test, again, these are in there just to have a bit of a visual prompt. And if you click on appointment needed for a blood test, it will bring up the task template directly. So you're not having to go through the task template clunky screen. We've then got various headings, which would be very useful for reception to know when contacting the patient, which the idea is the doctor will then, fill in and press OK, off it goes. All of these are pre-populated. It's got the right task category in there. So not, about as just trying to make it as easy as possible. A little feature, if TPP were listening, it would be really nice in when you set up task templates, you can't actually make things automatically, for example, bold and underlined. You can do it once you're in the task, you can do that. But if they could create task templates to make it have all that stuff in
have formatting,
set them up, that would be great. So just I'll put that out there in case someone is listening, because it would help to visually see, categories and things like that. So lots of different options depending. So district nurse request, you can even link to questionnaires as well. So actually, if I was going to task admin to book an asthma review, but then actually thought, well, I'll tell you what, I'll just send them the questionnaire. And again, that goes straight to the communication annex, and various different options within there. The doctor one, so the things which people can send to doctors, is unfortunately quite long because we get lots of stuff potentially coming through to us. So there's sick note stuff. There's if an HCA does an ECG, they will just pop this one through to us, which goes through to and it will say send it to the appropriate duty team. We have like a duty team system which works. It will tell the doctor what to do. So it kind of gives all that guidance within there. Urine results, various, lots of different bits and pieces there. For the referral team, who will send through all of our 2-week waits, it actually is, it's a bit more, you can see it's a bit more color coded there. So these are, that's a 2-week wait referral. That's a non 2-week wait, but still an urgent referral. So again, really visual for the user. So if it's a 2-week wait referral, click on that. It's set up to go to our secretaries with the appropriate task type in there. With the with this, it's a bit of an experiment here where you can actually we do recalls for a few things like PSA, thyroid, MGUS, DEXA scans, and actually this allows you to see whether they're on the PSA monitoring system. So if this patient isn't, but if they are, so if I just make them PSA monitoring, that will then come up on there. So you can have these kind of dynamic tables within the visualization itself. You can directly set recalls. You can, or if you're too lazy to do that, you can actually task our long-term condition team to do that. So, I mean, the possibilities are endless, really, but it gives you that a way to it's like a portal into that kind of task system, which is, gets away from just opening up the blank template and going from there.
Definitely. And I know, like we were talking about, I created a similar thing called Taskflow, which was based around using text codes that then link with protocols to then launch the tasks and stuff. And the reason why I do actually like yours probably slightly more than mine is because for mine, you have to remember the text codes. That's the thing. If you don't remember them, it doesn't work. Whereas this, because it's visual and it's click on, and you can bring those menu of options. Actually, I think for the majority of people, that works so much better. So to be honest, I may end up stealing yours rather than the other way around.
No problem. No. And you can call it Taskflow. Particularly for new GPs starting with us, or new anyone, then actually if you're sitting down with them and you're going, well, for this thing, task this person, it's just they don't take it in because there's so much as a newbie that you're actually taking in anyway. If you just go, actually, you'll find everything you need here, at least it gives them a way to kind of explore things and kind of understand how the system works. So in a way, it's been slightly easy to get our new staff members to use it than the more established staff members who, through a bit of force of habit, still go to the other option. I've semi-considered the nuclear option where you take away that button, but I just think it will cause a little bit too much. I'm not really quite there for doing that yet, but maybe one day.
Maybe one day. And I guess the other benefit is from a safety point of view, because you are updating, keeping those up to date when things change. So if it needs to go to a different team, actually not everyone needs to remember it now needs to go to a different team because you just change the direction of where it goes. Sorted.
Yeah, and just show one other one. Then over here we've got our kind of adding someone to a minor surgery list or a steroid injectionist. We did actually have our minor surgery list closed for a little bit because we didn't have the capacity to run them. And actually there was a little thing which said, it's closed. We're not accepting anymore at the moment. So it's just a way to illustrate that. Plus it shows the people who do injections within our practice and which ones they do as well. So all of those types of things you can include.
Like I said, I love it. Now, the next one we're going to talk about is complex medication reviews or other kind of stuff around complex patients and things. This looks really interesting. So tell us about it, why you did it, and absolutely show us it.
So I suppose the way I've thought about this one is I think a lot of people know about the action group descriptions, and I'll give an example of one of those. So test patient, they're on amlodipine, and it's got this at the bottom, which says when their last blood pressure was, which I think the idea was to have this all front and center really to make it easy when you're reauthorizing medications. But it's you can't really tailor the information which is in there. It's based on these big action groups, so you can't be specific for particular medications. So it's kind of helpful, but they're you're thinking are there kind of better ways to do it. That was one bit. The other bit is we every practice works differently. At the moment, a lot of the med reviews, med authorizations come to the GPs. We've got clinical pharmacists who we're working with to kind of see what we can get shifted over, but it is still quite a heavy workload for our GPs. So it's trying to make things as easy as possible for them. But it might be we get 10 tasks per day asking for medication reauthorizations. So to bring up this particular, what we call the guided medication review, again, it's set up with this little icon here. Same as before, you can interact with the visualization as well as the screen itself, which is very important for this type of thing. Yeah. The name of it, we're kind of thinking it's a slight play on guided meditation. So it's trying to make it feel like it's not quite as stressful as it might be. So it's all kind of nice blue calming tones there. Almost looks like rippling waves. So that's just a graphic which is brought in. So instantly you feel calm opening up. Anyway, that's the idea. Just to show you some slightly quirky things you can bring into a visualization. It might be that I've got 20 authorizations that I need to be working through, and I want to kind of relax a bit as I go through them. So if I click on this button, it will actually externally link to a royalty-free selection of meditation music, which you can click on. I don't think it will. Well, I won't play it, but it's nice and calming, so you can have that going in the background. Can also do some instant mindful breathing if you feel like you just need a little bit of a break there. You're straight into this, which gives you some ins and outs to do with all your different options there. And I know you've talked about this, Gandhi, in previous kind of productivity-based videos about Pomodoro timers. So you can actually set one of these up, and this is just linking to free external resources, but it allows you to, in a nice, easy way, you can start that, run that in the background. After 20 minutes, it will ping and it will say, take a bit of a break. So they're those kind of slightly little quirky things you can add into visualizations. To briefly go through this, the bits here, so it will show the QOF areas for the patient. So it's saying this patient is diabetic and is hypertensive. These are brought in through when you're kind of designing the visualization. But you can have custom information. So there's guide. So you can include guidance. So for example, if you're trying to decide how long to reauthorize a medicine for, there's a bit of guidance in here. Again, it's just a bit of a drop down. This is going to be practice specific. There are often questions which are asked, well, what medications need to be done with the patient? What need to be done without? What can be done without the patient in front of you? What can we send to pharmacists? And again, that's just some guidance which you can have here, which you can. It's nice that you can collapse and open these things, because it means that they only get in the way when they need to get in the way. It will then show for every patient, and I'll try and show a couple of different examples. It will show when their last documented medication review was. It will bring up information here dependent on what medication the patient is on. So this is picking up that the patient is on an antidepressant. And maybe if you're sending medication, if you're doing an SMS medication review, you want to do one, which we've got some mental health questions in there as well. The way that, I mean, this patient is on citalopram, that's what it's picking up. And what's behind that is there's in actually creating the visualization, you're putting this message in, and you're saying only display that message if the patient is in a particular report. So it's running a report in the background to say all the patients are on antidepressants. And then when you load up the visualization, if that patient is on antidepressant, it will show that element on the screen. And there's a lot more here, which you can't see because the patient it's not relevant to that patient. I can quickly show you the stuff which is there in the background afterwards. It will also then allow you to do things like you can go straight to opening the medication review and a medication review template, which you can fill out. You can task the pharmacist for medication review. You can, if I say actually this person needs a blood test, actually you can then link into your task flow system. So you can go from here to here, and then you can say they need a blood test. So you can actually jump from one visualization to another. You can get into the ICE system directly if needed. It's also got these options here where if I'm doing a notes-based medication review and I'm happy everything's up to date, don't need to see the patient, they've had their monitoring, everything's documented, then I can click on this, and this then jumps on protocols, which has been in SystmOne for a long time, and it will just run that in the background. And so number one, you can see it's automatically now put that another medication review has been done by myself. And if you go into the patient's notes, so if I go into the new journal here, it's added these codes into there. So medication review done without patient and all the relevant bits associated with that. If I'm with the patient and I click on that one, it just gives slightly different codes, which are more appropriate if you're with the patient. So, but it's just one click away. What I'm aware the regulating authorities like CQC don't like is simply to click the medication review button at the top without additional information behind it. So this allows still one click. You have to make sure it's appropriate, but adds all that information in there just nice and quickly. You can also show questionnaires that patients have previously replied to. So if actually 3 months ago we've sent a medication review questionnaire and they've replied to it, you can actually have that display here. All previous medication reviews will be there. So that's really a really good kind of at a glance way to see what work has been done in the background. Where it says medication alerts of importance for this patient, there's nothing there, and that's because this patient doesn't have anything else which needs to be mentioned in this scenario. But I will bring up another one which shows some examples. This will also show on every patient. It will show because I think these are things which are very which we often look at. So it shows when the last blood pressure readings over the last 12 months and EGFRs. This test patient never had a lot of this done, but it will show those there. It will also show if they've got an appointment pending. It will show consultations with the pharmacist in the past 12 months, and it will show previous questionnaires that have been sent to the patient. So you might be in a scenario where 2 months ago an HRT questionnaire was sent out, but they've not replied to it, but you don't know. How would you know that one's been sent without going into the new journal? So actually we've got a code which is added as every questionnaire is sent out, which this then picks up. So it actually lists every single questionnaire which has been historically sent to the patient. Just to show you a slightly more complex example. If I just bring up an example here. So we've got an example here of real life polypharmacy, where as much as you try, you can't get these patients are on these medications for very good reasons, and there's not much you can do about it. So this is a much more complex patient who's on a DOAC, they're on methotrexate, they're on antibiotics for recurrent UTIs. So we've got the cough areas there. We've got the documented medication reviews. It's saying that the patient's on an opioid. So maybe think about filling out an opioid review medication template. And it's also brought up this here to say, has an opioid medication review actually been done in the last, I think it's in the last 12 months, and there's nothing in there. It's saying, and this is the bit which was blank on that original patient, but these are medication alerts specific for this patient. So we've got so it's picking up the patient's on an antibiotic, and it's giving little prompts. So it's saying, well, make sure that the reason is coded. It's also saying if it's for a UTI, make sure you're considering reviewing and rotating it. If it's for acne, it's saying, again, make sure that there's a topical preparation which is being used. And it's just, you can put these little bits of kind of nuggets within there. And it also shows you the antibiotics that this patient has had over the last 12 months. So there's might be some acute medications in there as well, but you can see, well, there's nitrofurantoin, there's Kefalex. And so we do have a rotating regime happening here, but it would be very quick to see if they've been on nitrofurantoin for the last 12 months, oh crikey, we need to actually go in and have a chat with this patient to try and shift things up. See, there's a lot there. The patient is on nitrofurantoin. There's been recent guidance about renal function, and again, so what this does is it shows you, that's the most recent one here, when the last EGFR was. So you can kind of make sure that is within the right levels. It says you should ideally be doing annual liver tests as well. There we go. So it's brought up the ALT levels over the last 12 months. And it's also got a prompt to say, advise the patient to monitor for pulmonary symptoms. Patients on an ACE inhibitor. So again, you've got EGFRs there. It's all up to date. If this patient hadn't had an EGFR in the last 12 months, it would bring up a little prompt there saying they've not had it done in the last 12 months. Again, so just telling you that you need to be organising that. They're on a DOAC. So it's saying reviews the hemoglobin levels been less than 9 in the last 12 months. Actually, hemoglobin levels up a bit there, but it's again a little bit of a prompt there. You've also got you can put specific information about the different types of DOACs and when you shouldn't prescribe them, and with their creatinine clearance, how often they should be having their renal monitoring done. And actually down here, you will have their all the creatinine clearance, which has been documented over the past 12 months. And their weights and their BMIs. Patients on prednisolone, and it says they've had over 2 prednisolone in the last 12 months, or they've had quite a lot. You can see that they've had a steroid card. Can see that they are getting their HbA1c checked because they're on prednisolone. If they haven't had their HbA1c checked, it's a prompt to go, actually, we need to get one. Let's get one done. If they've not had a steroid card, if they're with you, you could just click on that and it will bring up the steroid card template eventually. There we go. So you can jump straight to those different methotrexate. I told you this was a complex patient. They're methotrexate, so it's going to need monitoring every 3 months. And then we've reached the end of the list for that patient, and so then it gives the usual stuff, which is the last blood pressures, EGFRs. They've seen the pharmacist that many times. You can right click and you could say see journal entry, go straight to it. But just to if I go into the back end of that, so if I amend this, so this actually shows where's it gone? Here we go. So everything in the background. So these are all the different prompts which are going to come up depending on the scenario. These are the questionnaires which look blank, but they're set up from that button there. So it's going through statins, antibiotics, if they're on an antipsychotic, and it's carbimazole and digoxin and progesterone-only pills, and I suppose a lot of this, I didn't sit down and do this all in one day. This has kind of happened over 9-12 months. I'll add this one and I'll add. So it's been a bit of a slow burner. And again, as you said, it needs to be kept up to date, but it's pretty meaty. It's got quite a lot of stuff in there. Testosterone, PSA monitoring, and so you've got all of these great safety reports which run in the background, and this is the way to actually make them much more usable and much more useful. Teratogenic medications, so loads and loads of stuff in there, which as general practice gets more complex, I think this is a good illustration of it.
Stuff that will help. Obviously, a lot of patients and members of the team manage those patients as well. So we had a look at individual patients with the complex medication reviews. Shall we have a look at the more macro kind of stuff, the population healthcare things? And I know you've got a visualization to help with MDT meetings, haven't you?
So again, this what we used to do with our MDT meetings is have lists on Microsoft Teams in a spreadsheet, which had its advantages, but you had to then manually update that if a patient left the practice, take them off the list, and it's just and you're duplicating information with SystmOne, which is just ripe for things just going a bit out of control. So again, using visualizations, we now have this window here. So what this will do is we've got 3 sites, so we've got separate lists for each site because we do them separately, and using the same way you do the kind of safety search reports, it's set up in the same way in terms of a batch report running in the background and that displaying here, but it shows what would be on our, this is kind of our adult vulnerable list, our palliative list, and we've got a child safeguarding list as well. So this will dynamically change every day, this number, depending on the scenario. So actually, if we add someone to the palliative care list yesterday, then that number will go up by 1 automatically without any kind of manual stuff having to be done. So it's always up to date, which is useful. And then to actually get to the list, then all we're doing is pressing on the I button here, and the report is generated. Now what we've actually got here is, so there's the list of patients, and we do these, I don't know how much people use these, but we've set up a report output for each of the 3 options. So for our adult vulnerable list, it will actually rejig the report data to show when the last review date was, whether we've said it's a high priority or a routine patient, so we can actually decide which patients to go through first. We've also got their A&E admissions over the past, I think it looks at the last 12 months. So actually they're frequent attenders, you can quite quickly pick that up on here. So all the great work that our coding team does, coding letters, you got that in there. It's not a visualization thing particularly, but actually it's just an illustration of another way you can tinker with the reports. Equally if I just go back here and I show the palliative list, the output we've got for this shows whether they've got a GSF status, so you can quickly see which ones need to be added, whether they've got respect forms, resuscitation, and again A&E admission. So it's quite a good way to kind of run your MDT lists, which then springboard off that visualization. You can also add things in, like I've tried to make it, so let's say, so I'm in a test patient here. Let's say I want to add Megan to our, not to be dark about things, but add her to our palliative care list. To make it easy for people to do, you can add in instructions on how to add a patient to the list, how to remove a patient from the list, how to code their GSF status, how to code respect DNAR status, enter log dates. But actually to add a patient, you can then, again, load up protocols. So here it's saying if you're in a patient record, click on this, and then it will talk you through protocols. It says, do you want to add this patient to the palliative care list? Yes. What's the GSF status? So yellow. Do they have a respect form? Yes. Are they for, what's the resuscitation station? They're kind of full resuscitation. And they're added. So it will really simple way just to add the patient to the list. Again, it's put more codes in over and above the medication ones, which we did earlier. And then from tomorrow, because the reports run overnight, that patient will be added to the palliative care list. So really easy way to do it. We also kind of evidence our MDTs by sending a task into a different group. So that's something you can do from here as well. You can run reports from here. There's one which says, look for our super attenders. So these are patients who aren't on any of these lists, but are a super attender, so that you can then look and see, well, does that patient need to be added to a case management list? So just gives you these options in the background, again, which just don't think you would have been able to do previously with templates and the previous functionality in SystmOne.
And I guess I really like the way that you've got those different levels of vulnerabilities and aspects for patient care that's in there. So, obviously we've got the palliative care, but also safeguarding, like you say, there's high users and stuff. So you can target those populations and really prioritize the care and stuff that they need in order to make sure that their care is more personalized, basically. It's a really powerful tool.
Yeah.
I really like it.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's updated, like you say, directly from SystmOne rather than having to copy to another set of systems and stuff just makes that information so much more reliable, doesn't it?
Yeah. I guess it's much less. It's less potential for problems to happen and less labor intensive as well.
Okay. So we've covered loads of stuff. So 5 different ways that you can use visualizations and stuff when it comes to using TPP SystmOne. I want to thank Mark for joining us and sharing this. Now, we did consider whether or not we could import these for people to use and stuff. That is possible. I think Mark's going to have a look and see if he can do it through the resource library. And if that's the case, check the links in the show notes and stuff, and I'll explain how you can do that. Don't forget, the problem with importing other people's visualizations, you need all the other stuff that comes with it, the reports, the task templates, all that kind of stuff, and exporting all of that's really tricky. That's why you have companies who do it, like Ardens and that kind of stuff and things as well. But we will try our best to help you and stuff. If you would like a separate episode where Mark shows us, or potentially somebody else, shows us how to create the visualizations, let me know in the comments down below, and we will see if we can arrange that for you, because I think that'd be a great session, but I'd love to know if you guys would as well. Thank you so much for joining us, Mark. Really have enjoyed this session. I think I'm going to now try and finally get on and create some visualizations, hopefully, if I ever get the headspace to do it and stuff and things. And as ever, if anybody wants to catch more information about TPP SystmOne or other stuff around primary care, check out. We'll probably have more content right here. Alternatively, you can have a look and subscribe for more information as ever. And we'll catch you in the next episode.